So this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. This is a review of, well, the first half of John Carter of Mars. I'll then put the second half on the other one. John Carter of Mars was a movie about 10 years ago. It was called John Carter, and it was back when there was a Disney connection, and and they were all like, they marketed it badly. Should have called it John Carter of Mars, because no one's going to get it if it's just called John Carter. Needless to say, they didn't appreciate that. Anyway, so, but they still didn't sell the movie. It's still on Disney Plus, and watched about half of it. Based on the Edgar Rice Burroughs books. 1800s. There's like a post-Civil War character called John Carter, who is in Arizona territory, and he's transported to Mars through apparently there's like an Indian Native American like Apache or something. Native American cave that he's escaping from a colonel guy that's chasing him. Wants him to be conscripted into his army or something. And he gets taken to that. Because he goes into the cave, it transports him to Mars. But it's sort of a fanciful 1800s version of Mars. Back when they thought, okay, the canali and the channels and there's life there and everything. So it's sort of like if you did a Venus one, it'd be the same idea. Venus is totally, because back then they didn't know. They didn't have flying machines yet. So yeah, John Carter from Mars. Yeah, starts out very quiet, hard to hear. And then there's like, I guess the implication is that some of the Apaches or Comanche guys use this cave as sort of a wormhole to travel to. They had a wormhole in there, or a Stargate kind of, to travel to Mars, and settled there. And some of the white guys also settled there, but they forgot that they were them, and they lived on Mars instead. Therefore, just as powerful. There was an astronomy guy, a bearded astronomy guy, going on about that John Carter of Mars story and saying what was accurate, but it wasn't. But technically, if they were humans transplanted from Earth, they would still be as strong as they were before. And the sky would still be, wouldn't be red, it would be blue, just because it's a Mars that has an atmosphere. It's a Mars that's breathable. And that explains why the ship can be on fire when it crashed and stuff. Because in that universe, Mars is closer to how. Yeah, so I get that. Yeah, okay. And they have the princess of the red humans, and they have green, tall Martian, Tatimus Temerelli looking characters. Around. They look like Martians, classic Martians. Green, kind of a praying mantis crossed with some kind of an insect. Praying mantis crossed with maybe a dinosaur of some kind. Interesting movie. The movie had the unfortunate property of having been released with bad press for it. The people didn't know what it was. Called it John Carter. People wouldn't know what it was. But yeah, the premise is fairly simplistic. It's similar to Conan and Star Wars and Dune. But that's because the people that wrote, the Conan book, and then later on wrote Star Wars and Dune, were familiar with Edgar Rice Burroughs. So if you're going to do a movie with Edgar Rice Burroughs and Princess of Mars, this is Princess of Mars, basically, call it Princess of Mars. That probably would have been a fine title, because this is book 2. It's Princess. They jump to book 2. The original one, though, he goes to sleep and he dreams that he's on Mars. So it's all, Yeah, so I only wanted to go through about half of it, and go on and review the rest later. So that's my review so far. It's fine for what it is. It's fantasy movie. Bad timing. It came out when they did a Conan remake, so kind of this movie has kind of the same one, and the other one is the same one. What are we looking at? Jumping stuff is a little weird. It reminded me of that Warcraft movie, which actually wasn't that bad. It's actually a fairly decent Warcraft. I didn't mind that movie. Reminds me of Warcraft. Which Red Letter Media refused to do a review of. Oh, we want to do a review of that. That was similar with this one. They did review. I think they did review John Carter of Mars, though. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to do for the evening. And fine so far. Nothing wrong with it. Weird hatchling scene is autonomous. You have a goddess on the planet that ruins her too large. But I chalked that up to Edgar Rice Burroughs, the 1800s, not knowing what's going on and having it set in that time period and having them just assume it's Earth-like there. Because otherwise it wouldn't be. So, as a science fiction writer person, science fiction parodies and stuff, I don't consider that a problem. Just marketed as John Carter of Mars, it would have been better. Yeah. But yeah. Over there at Disney, they didn't want to be convinced against their will that that wasn't a good idea. Just call it John Carter. Yeah. Yeah. John Carter. So, yeah. Funky. Actually, the bad guys in it and some of the actions in it, seasons in it, are very considerably very similar to a lot of those Marvel Star Wars shows that are on Disney Plus now. There's a lot of Mandalorian in this, in a sense, the way it's structured. There's a lot of the Book of Boba Fett in there, too. There's bad guys kind of overacting like the Boba Fett ones. So it's not very original. But this was first. This was before. Yeah. Sort of like when the Lord of the Rings live-action movies came out and they were comparing it to Star Wars and going, it's a ripoff. It wasn't. Lucas was a fan of Tolkien. He read The Hobbit movies. Yeah, Star Wars is a mismatch of a bunch of stuff. As were these sequels and... Okay, this is a review of the second half of John Carter of Mars. Yeah, the Edgar Rice Burroughs story, the audio on this particular version, it's on Disney Plus, kept going in and out, and like it wasn't Foleyed correctly, which is really weird. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this movie, and it wasn't Foleyed correctly. It wasn't gaffed and Foleyed correctly. I don't know why they did that. It could have benefited from, that. I mean, they spent an awful lot of money on the CGI ships and things, and basically the subplot is, plot of the rest of the story is the princess is supposed to get married, she doesn't want to. She ends up hooking up with John Carter, and these tall alien Martian things, and they go on a quest, and then then they discover that there's a double cross going on with a shape-shifting guy that suddenly shapeshifts, shape-shifting bad guy, sort of a Palpatine sort of dude crossed with the white evil overlord guy from other things. Maybe a kind of a Skeletor kind of hybrid. Then again, Edgar Rice Burroughs, they probably think that. Another thing that was odd is that the Martian humanoids appear to be descended from some kind of an Earth colony through the passageway or whatever, and the princess is played by a white lady. Maybe she has a little Native American in her, but not much. It's like, why didn't they just get a Native American person to wear? Anyway, so yeah, it's kind of odd. The movie kind of at points does lose steam and probably needed to have a rewrite. But it is more exciting than the Masters of the Universe, the movie back in the day. That ain't saying much. Well, they actually went out into the desert and filmed out there, including using Ayers Rock. And there was another scene in the movie that was silly, where he's in the arena and he fights the arena beasts and he can hurl giant boulders. The other thing, the astronomer person, TV astronomer on YouTube pointed out, it's like, how could he hurl rocks? His mass wouldn't be different. It would still be like, okay, yeah, that's gravity. It doesn't mean that you can suddenly pick up a boulder 3 times bigger than you and throw it, or a beast or something. The beast would still be equally heavy. It wouldn't be lighter unless there was no gravity at all. You would be as heavy as the mass doesn't change. You would still find it difficult to lift a boulder. But yes, this would be Barzu. Of course, we're presuming the entire thing is based on the fantasy by Edgar Rice Burroughs, whereas it's entirely a dream anyway, so the whole premise is a dream. He tries to get back to the dream. He fakes his death so he can fight off the bad guys down the planet. Even though that was just one bad guy, but yeah. His avatar can reappear on Mars. Avatar. Yeah. James Cameron movie that ripped off Edgar Rice Burroughs. Yeah. and Pocahontas, and kind of a similar story. And the new one kind of looks like it's going to be sort of a rip-off of a number of sequels, including, it looks like it's a rip-off of Simba's Pride. Yeah. You're going to rip off Lion King Simba's Pride in the next Avatar movie. Great. Not too exciting. Oh no, the wife's dead. No, I have to go on the mission. No. It's kind of like John Carter a little bit too. Dead wife in there somewhere. But yeah, the whole story is, it needed to be called John Carter of Mars. It needed somebody to do a good musical score because it's a $million-dollar movie. It needed somebody to give it an actual score. There are whole moments in the thing where, like, the bombastic quest story has to have bombastic music. The Lord of the Rings theme or the Star Wars theme or something like that. Very, very generic sounding. It's not good enough. It has to. I don't know who did the music on it, but there were whole tracks of area where they cut the sound out because the actors weren't Foleyed correctly. So they were like I'm over here, and I'm going to go fight you now, and the bad guy's coming. It's like, the whispery thing, which they still do in Disney Marvel movies, in those Marvel Phase 4 TV shows. They do that all the time. They don't realize they're too darn quiet and they need to be louder. They don't realize that. And it detracts from it if you have to strain to understand what the characters are saying. It's a classic example was Christopher Nolan and the Batman Begins with the Edward Bane, it doesn't matter what Bane is saying. It's like, kind of does. And then they asked him about it. And he was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter what he's saying. Yeah, it does. Even the director was like, I don't care if he's mumbling. Or in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Disney Plus. There were 4 episodes of that show that didn't need to be there because you couldn't hear them. To play the title credits to be able to hear them. About 3 or 4 episodes of that Boba Fett book that didn't need to be there. That they even gave up on halfway through and made it Mandalorian season 2.5. Like because they ran out of ideas. Well, this one they didn't run out of ideas. They clearly had an idea. They had a concept. They had a vast world built up, and then they didn't market it right. And they didn't want to hear that from us. But they didn't market it right. Marx Cards saw it before I did. I just saw it. I hadn't seen it. No, it's 2012. I haven't seen it. It could have been a big hit. But it came out with a Conan remake. and it needed some work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It desperately needed some work. And they could have polished it up for another couple thousand and fixed it. And it would have cost them that much. You know, Foley, the actors, get him in the studio, have him do the lines over.